Hello, everyone. And thank you for making the time, not just to attend this session, but to pause and think about how learning actually shows up in our working lives. It's a very simple question. We don't really think about it. And it's interesting for us to sit down and brainstorm around that. Warm welcome to our panel who bring deep and varied experience across learning and leadership and even business. And I'm looking forward to your perspectives that you'll bring to the conversation today. Uh, the focus today, everyone, is on something very personal, but it's also deeply systemic. So before we start getting into brainstorming, everyone, all the participants, there will be a Q&A, which will be at the end of the discussion. Please share your questions on the chat, and we will pick all of them up at the end of the talk. And hopefully, during the talk, most of them will be answered, but we'll see. So let me start off with a slightly uncomfortable question. What skill are you quietly hoping you won't need in your day to day life? And you don't have to answer out loud, just notice instinctively what came to your mind. Because most of us, we can name it instantly. What's interesting is we usually don't avoid learning because we're lazy. It's not that we've not gotten to that skill because we just let it sit. We know it's important, right? But there are costs to learning: time, confidence, the realization that you're going to start at zero for something, right? And it takes effort. In the earlier panel that we had a very interesting topic. We talked about preparing for jobs that don't exist. And this discussion focuses on the human side of that because the future will keep changing. It is changing as we speak. The real risk is not missing a skill, it's missing a relationship with learning. And a lot of us will say at this point, well, but we learn on a regular basis. We have programs, we have activities, we have assignments. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about what is our relationship with learning? How do we look at it? Is it someone who's intruding in our day, or is it a partner that walks with us in the journey of our career? So today we're going to explore this and what it really takes for us as employees to own our learning journeys. What shifts when learning moves from compliance to intent? What kind of structures, systems, and support will make ownership possible without turning it into another obligation? And how technology and data can help us get there. So that's the territory we're going to unpack together. So let's talk about this shift. So, Falguni, for a long time, learning at work has been something done to employees: assigned courses, mandated assignments, required completions, and due dates, right? And learner ownership changes that equation. It's when learning moves from compliance to intent, is what we're talking about here. From I was told to I need to or I want to. Now, that shift is really loud, right? But it's visible, especially if you've seen learning as playing across roles, levels, business contexts. And a lot of your work has sat right at the intersection of business priorities, individual development. You've managed performance management and IDPs and created capability across functions. How do you balance organizational capability priorities with individual learning aspirations? Especially, both of these are important and they're not always aligned, are they?
Correct. So, Pala, thanks for asking this question. So, for me, the way to balance the organizational lead and individual aspiration is to stop treating them to as separate tracks, right? Because in most of the cases, they actually complement each other if we design the ecosystem really well, right? Every organization has its capability priorities, whether it is strengthening the digital skills, building leadership depth, or becoming a more customer centric organization, right? All these are non negotiables. It actually helps us to stay competitive in the market. So what we do at Crompton is make those capabilities very transparent, right? And we communicate the why behind them. When people understand why a skill is important for a business, they automatically see how it can help them to grow in near future, right? And at the same time, individuals have their own career aspirations. Maybe someone wants to move into analytics, someone wants to shift from a support role to a frontline sales role. So instead of forcing everyone to, one size fits all learning, right?
Yeah.
We actually give them the pathways. I call it as a freedom, freedom within a framework, right? That's what I follow in my organization. So we have a core skills which everyone will focus on, and then we also have a optional pathways where employees can explore, experiment, and choose what resonates with them. And the real magic actually happens during the career conversations, right? When the managers sit down with an individual team members and connect the dots between, the capability gap and the expectations around them. So the balance really comes from creating clarity, giving a choices to an individual, and helping people see the overlap between organizational goals and personal ambitions. When both sides actually meet, ownership becomes stronger, much, much stronger.
You make it sound very simple, whereas we all know it is not. I absolutely loved what you said about explaining the why behind them. I've generally noticed that we get so much into the rut of getting the courses completed, getting the learning done. A lot of time, the why is lost. And we
Correct.
notice people asking, why am I doing this when I have other priorities? How is this going
Yeah.
to help? But answering that question actually truly starts that journey of the ownership, because now I know how this helps me. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that you guys are doing this. Excellent.
Thank you.
Uh, Dr. Rishi, uh, welcome to the panel. A large part of your work has been about shifting how leaders and employees think about accountability and ownership and change, and not just the skills. So, from that lens and your experience, what mindset shifts have you observed that are required that make this a success on both employee and leadership side to move from this learning as compliance to learning as true ownership?
Thank you very much, Palak, for asking this question. And thank you, Patwini. I heard some why part from your side. My apologies because I was in other call. I may again go, but I will try not to be disrupting the discussion. I think what you asked, Palak, is a very relevant question that, how the relationship between employee and the leader, if I understand clearly, is that ownership can be shifted towards the learner primarily. Is this the question which you are
Yes.
asking? Yeah.
How do you,
So,
what are the skills? Sorry, to
hmm,
interrupt you, but how do we change the mindset? It's easy to
mindset.
say own the learning, and then everyone's wondering, how do I own the learning?
Yeah. So, common sensically speaking, if I say the number one skill which a leader or mindset should demonstrate to the team members or to the other people is walking the talk. You
Mm,
know, that is something. If I tell them, they say that cigarette smoking is bad for health.
mm,
But it is, if you advise and you do it, uh, you know it very well. I need not explain it. So if people say that, the leaders say that come in time, and he or she is coming at 10 o'clock and wants employees to come at 8 o'clock,
yeah.
that is the number one mindset walking. I'll say it. And today's Gen Z, they are very, very bold, and they question that, भाई साहब आप तो कर नहीं रहे हो. Why are you asking me to do it? Why you go ahead? मेरे घर के अंदर भी ऐसे होता है कि, if my daughter is keeping the utensils in the bin, and my wife says, why didn't you wash it? So she says, पापा ने धोया था क्या, आप मेरे को बोल रहे हो?
Mm,
तो so that is exactly, she has forced me to wash my own utensil now. So I'm doing it. So that is also a learning. The number one mindset is that you have to demonstrate. In this volatile world, my dear friends, it is the skills expire very faster than the job roles. And ownership has to sit with the learner also and with the leader also. So that is something which I believe. Well, from staying on the topic, the shift part, I'll say that, the employees always ask which program should I attend to get promoted, to get more increment. Whereas leaders, they say that why aren't people applying the three skills which they have learned? So this is always a gap in the learning and personal responsibility. And that's something which big responsibility which lies with the mindset, creating a mindset and ownership among the leaders, so that they create more leaders like them. So, I mean, when I conduct a program on situational leadership for my leadership workshops, I always say that, let show me the team. I will tell you what kind of leader you have, and show me the leader. I'll tell you what kind of team you have.
Absolutely.
So that is the kind of skills which are required by the leader. I hope I was able to answer your question, Palak. Yes.
And some more, Dr. Rishi. I think there's a whole topic around if you show me the leader, I will tell you what the team is, and vice versa. It's something I use very much to understand the kind of leaders that I'm dealing with. And love that you're saying walk the talk. It is so ingrained in us to behave or exhibit ourselves as leaders the way we've been, and we don't always realize the impact of our actions because our employees are supposed to do certain perform certain activities, and we kind of separate ourselves from that. So the understanding and the realization that we have to walk the talk, we have to work in the weeds with them, that is such a strong way of empowering them to create that culture of owning your leadership. So if I as a leader or you as a leader, we don't learn ourselves, we can't really be telling them to learn themselves, right? So fantastic. I'm sure I hope you'll share more about how your daughter is teaching you a little bit more about the Gen Z's equality, because that's something even I'm learning with my team. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Rishi. Um, okay. If you're saying that employees should own their learning journeys, right? We're not saying they have to build it from scratch. We're not saying that. Ownership is something that comes when the environment is designed right, I believe, and there need to be clear pathways. They have to have resources that they can trust, the right coaching, the right support, and that design work, it becomes so critical at scale when we're talking about empowering people to drive it on their own. And consistency and equity, they will matter as much as the flexibility. So, Falguni, given your experience in building capability across scales or corporate functions and large employee populations, how do you see the role of L&D evolving from program designers to learning enablers and coaches while they still provide that structure and that quality and direction?
So, Palak, I think in my opinion, the role of L&D has gone through a big shift, right? Earlier, we as a learning professionals were largely around designing programs, scheduling them, filling the seats, ensuring the delivery is happening on time, right? And it was more of a calendar driven and event driven, right? But employees today need a lot of flexibilities, right? They want learning that fits into their day, not something they have to pause their work for, right? Because we as an HR business professionals, we keep chasing them. Please take out a time and come for this particular program, come for that particular program. So I think that's changed our role completely now, right? Instead of being a program designers, we have now become enablers, right? Almost like a guide for an employees. So we focus more on curating the right content, building the skill pathways, and enabling my managers to having effective development conversations, right? Which will help them to create an ecosystem where people will feel comfortable learning on their own. Another big change I have seen in my career as an L&D professional, which is move beyond just a content, right? We now look at the community learning, peer learning, right? Mentoring, job shadowing, which was not there before, right? Things that have me feel more real and practical, not just a classroom kind of a learning, right? So which we call it as a blended learning way of, learning things. So I think the identity of an L&D professional is now shifting from we own the learning to we create environment where learning can happen anytime, anywhere, or in the multiple formats. And honestly, employees respond much better to that's what my personal experience is, right? And they don't want, because currently, as Dr. Rishi rightly mentioned, that employees really don't want to be told that what they have to learn, right? They want to be supported in the learning journey, right? And that matters the most to them. So that's the direction we as an organization are moving in. So, rather than creating a pathways where we fit everybody into a one size, right, we are actually curating a content which help them to learn anywhere and any time as per their schedule. And I think that's helping us as an L&D professional to achieve, achieve a greater heights in terms of, building a culture of learning in the organization.
And I'm not surprised that it's helping because what you've just shared with us, Falguni, is such a formula. Initially, you talked about ensuring people understand the why. And now I hear that you're applying adult learning theories so subtly. You're putting them in the driver's seat by getting them involved in the process. And so powerful that you're bringing learning to them. This is a shift we've been observing for a while. This has been long coming, that we cannot take out the time to sit down and learn. Plus, our own ability to focus has reduced so much. So, sitting down in a classroom to understand and grasp everything, go back and apply, is just too much effort. And this is another way where we bring the learning to them, where we're doing when they're doing it, so they can see it in live action. They can see the impact right there, and that's how our learners are changing today. So it is we could take a leaf or two from you, where we're saying, let's look at the learners and how they want to do it. If we want them to own it, they have to also drive it in a certain way. We have to do
Absolutely.
what exactly. That's fabulous. That really helps to know, and why you're seeing the results there. So, uh, in that line, Dr. Rishi, you worked at scale. You've set up business academies, learning policies, leadership frameworks, where this freedom that we're just talking about of a learner to kind of drive their learning to say, this is where I want to go. This freedom without focus can quickly become very fragmented. We could all be running around like headless chicken because the learner is driving us. In that context, what kind of governance or guardrails are necessary from your experience to ensure that the self-learning is it's directed, it stays aligned with business goals, which has always been something that we've tried to manage, right? Now it gets even more tricky. Uh, Without us having to start controlling them, because it'll be a knee-jerk reaction for us that it's gone out of hand, we're not achieving because we're so used to our numbers and our trackers, and that's going to be something we'll have to give up a little bit, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, Palak, I like the word guardrails when you use it, because that is something which we normally use it in the software development lingo. And since I was developing a platform for coaching, so there I use this word, and I totally agree that, when it comes to learnings also, self-directed learnings, I will say that democracy is good, but full democracy is not good. There has to be a control with respect to given a structure regarding it. That is something which is important. And sometimes the autocracy also is required. That's the reason I'm a great believer of situational leadership. So if a person is in terms of a fully mature person, the person will know what goals or objectives he or she wants to achieve in the life. But a person himself or herself is lost, they need to be guided, they need to be coached. So as they say, I being a coach at ICF, PCC and Marshall Goldsmith coach. So I always say that, everybody needs a coach. Even I have two coaches of mine. Everybody requires a coach. So it is not that, because, why I say this statement is because people at the top, they are very lonely as you go up. So you require somebody where you can bounce up. Similarly, employees, they need to have mentor, buddy, or even a guide who can help them. And when you're making the systems in the organization, you see, I did an experiment over here. I gave all the employees the access to the learning platform. Let me not name it. There are multiple of them, skills of LinkedIn Learning, edX. And I just want in the chat box, what do you think should be the attempt ratio of out of 100%? Let me understand from chat box, or you can unmute and say it. Palak, you can say, Makranji, you can say it. Falguni, you can say it. What should be the attempt rate,
Oh,
registration rate?
20%.
Sorry,
20%.
20%.
It's very
Falguni, Makran. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
getting some
yes, I would also consider it at around 20-30%.
20%. Yeah. So I was surprised that you're pretty close. In fact, I was surprised that the registration rate, I mean, making an account and then completing the courses. There are two aspects of it, you
Yeah.
know. So the making an account, people like immediately made an account, about 40% of they did it. But the completion rate of the courses was just about 10%. They would start a course and I should not blame them. I also did like that. Let me be very frank. Okay, when I started Udemy, I बड़ा excitingly मैंने शुरू किया था, but मैं छोड़ दिया बीच में. So that is where it is required. So that is where I'm saying that little bit of structure, the guardrails are required function wise. If a person is some supply chain, we pick up some courses and tell them that you have to complete this mandatorily. There are some organizational courses, and there are some functional courses. So that is where we need to do it. I did a program called Digital 101, followed by a coaching session. And Digital 101 is a 15 hours mandatory course from MD level to the frontliner. And we did it in that it consists of AI, ML, digital transformation, interpersonal skills. There was soft skill also in that. So we made it mandatory for everybody, and still I did not get 100% compliance for it. Let me I then I made it competitive. I said, you whoever completes it and implements it with a project showing some improvement in the processes, they will get a voucher of 10,000 rupees Amazon voucher. Okay, so that's a kind of incentive I declared. Top 5 people who will be doing it, and I created a like that Shark Tank kind of scenario also. So they will present their ideas. So I created a jury who will approve those projects. So and that created excitement. Ultimately, it closed at 90% attempt rate with my spend of around 30,000 rupees only.
That is
So
very
Amazing.
successful.
so this is one example. Similarly, they have umpteen examples you have to create. When it comes to LMS or LXP, you may create gamification, but ultimately, the people are still struggling. Many companies are struggling for attempt rates. यहाँ पे हम stick use करते हैं, then accordingly then we use the sales managers to complete that courses. So there are umpteen cases with us wherein we make sure that there is a stick and a carrot, both are used so that people attempt those aspects. But more importantly, I will say if it is linked to business, it definitely people definitely attempt on it on their own. But then all the courses are not like this. Some are hygiene courses also.
Yes.
To get name POSH is there, DPDA Act is there, okay, cyber security is there, ESG is there. Okay, तो इससे क्या होगा सर? लेकिन हमारे लिए मैंडेटरी है वो.
True, true. And absolutely 90% success rate is just something we dream of, Dr. Rishi. And getting people to take out time to do that, and I can see the work that's gone into it, the different ways we're getting people to complete that learning, to kind of bring to them the way they would want to learn, the incentivizing, the role play, the excitement of presenting like a Shark Tank, making it more relatable to them, right? These are all parts of them starting to say, okay, I think I may want to learn this and start getting into that. Is a lot of flexibility there in the design. And I agree, situational leadership in learning is such an understated skill that we all very much like muscle memory present. We're tweaking and we're changing as per our learners' behavior on a regular basis. We're like these, probes who are always out to try and understand what's the weather like in the learner world right now, and how do we need to change and start changing ourselves to bring the learning to them in the right manner. A lot that you shared there. Control democracy. It's a word to peel, right? Control democracy is a contradictory word there, but it is. I understand what you're saying. I'm sure Falguni and Makrand will agree. We all understand what you're saying there. And
Absolutely.
exactly, and the balance of that is so difficult for us to manage there. But all of these ways that we're coming up with, to get people to understand how they can direct themselves, and business related learning is always the star, right? I know I need to use this. I'm going to go in and learn this, but it's the other important ones, and so difficult because everyone knows, oh, there will be a posh learning. Everyone knows there will be a compliance learning, and it's worse if you've already done it somewhere else because I've done it somewhere else. right? Those are really difficult for people to understand. Why do I have to do it every year? I understand it. So those become really tricky. Makrand, you've led learning across very different contexts, from manufacturing environments to large consulting organizations. A lot of your work has focused on competency frameworks and leadership pipelines. Now, in that journey, uh, can you share an example or so where giving learners more autonomy within this clear structure, within controlled democracy, if I may borrow your word, Dr. Rishi, has actually led to better engagement or outcomes or a shift in their mindset or approach?
Indeed, yes. In fact, it was an experiment. And I'm glad. I'm so sorry. I came in. I joined in late. My apologies. I had to join in another call. But yes, I won't introduce myself maybe later. But yes, directly jumping into giving the answer. I think when you talk about controlled democracy or you know uh, the way I look at it is as individuals, my current role as a L&D head is to, as Falguni said, be a enabler, but at the same time also provide some facts and
Mm,
connect those facts with emotional levers. For example, I was looking at a small research taken through artificial intelligence, and I was just looking at the data in terms of what has been the learning ratio for each individual, irrespective of the number of experience that you carry. Um, Around 20 years back, the learning life cycle used to be around 7 years. So after every 7 years, you had to learn and upgrade yourself on an average. And if you calculate it today, or if you do a research, it has come down to around 2.5 years. Eventually, in the next 5 years, I guess it would come down to 1 year or so. What it indicates is, you know, while as leaders, you push certain learning journeys, and you also talk about the why is it important. But at the same time, connecting the facts with the emotion is also important. Ask those relevant questions. uh, uh, why should you be learning today? Whatever you're doing today, would it be relevant in the next 12 months? And if yes, what are you doing differently? If no, what should you do? I think as an enabler, my role is to ask important questions, and it's a flicky way. You talk about technology, but I think at a human level, we all have also got fed up of technology. As Dr. Rishi said, you have Udemy's and you have LinkedIn's. But if you ask yourself, how much is your completion rate? You, somewhere your inner view will start laughing at you, right? So same goes with, making people realize, okay, let's not talk about technology, but why are you not spending that time? And as a counselor or as a coach, I think it is important for us to make people realize. And that's the reason why now, while I communicate, the learning initiatives that we take at Sharda Motors, I also make sure that I am pinching the leaders, the
mm,
functional leaders and the HODs, talking about if they do this with their team, this is the benefit. If they don't, you're missing the train.
mm,
And that's where somewhere I feel, because with manufacturing, this is my first stint. I've been throughout my career, I've been a service guy. But with manufacturing, I think this has worked, making them realize that what you're giving, how is it benefiting and how is it connecting with your current and your future 6 months role. I think that is working, and I'm getting traction in terms of, okay, Mokran, I want to do this, or I want my two people from my team to get this done. What should we do? I
mm,
think that conversation is important, and asking the right question is important for me. This has worked for me for the last 12 odd months. Though if I compare this with my consulting work or my days of Vodafone and Reliance, it was more of a push rather than a pull.
Mm.
But when manufacturing, I mean, it was a cultural shock, and this has started working. So yeah, it's still an experience, it's still an exposure, but yeah, reaching towards it.
Absolutely. And I think as we change industries and we come across uh, problems, different problems to solve, we also evolve to align to what we, to the goals we want to help the organization achieve. So that's a very interesting insight. I particularly want to zoom in on, Makarand, what you talked about in terms of how us revisiting or refreshing our skill sets, how the timeline is reducing, really. I mean, if you're saying every 2.5 years, and these are numbers, these numbers come from facts, and we all feel it as well, right? We've consistently been revamping ourselves, learning something new. Is it something that, and I'd like to open this to everybody, is it something that also is weighing down on the learners in terms of what's the point? Because I'll have to relearn something else very soon. Does this learning really contribute? And do we need to start looking at, in the empowering of employees, also helping them understand how the current learning forms maybe a foundation, or maybe it helps short term? Does segueing the conversation in that direction also help them understand the importance and take the lead on, okay, I must learn this?
Yeah, you want me to respond?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'll keep it quick. So example, if you talk about artificial intelligence, right? I mean, I'm sure Falguni and Dr. Rishi would also agree that, since the last 18 to 24 months, all learning heads across industries have been bombarded with these questions. What are you doing for AI?
Yeah.
And believe me, number of people, number of partners, number of leaders that I'm talking with, they are equally, I mean, we all are standing at the equal level
Yeah.
of
Agree.
knowledge, right? But still, there is always that froth which grows.
Mm.
And I think I strongly believe that my job is to clear that froth. You talk about AI, fair enough. Okay, there is also a budget, but you exactly tell me what do you want. And that's where, this experimental knowledge comes in play.
Mm.
People have not, I mean, this is my personal experience. We talk about IoT in manufacturing, we talk about predictive maintenance.
Mm.
But as an individual, I think I should first graduate myself with this topic. What is predictive maintenance? What is IoT? And I don't come from that background, and you're suddenly asking me, you know, tell me about, or, do some research and talk about it. But it is also important to have those thoughtful conversations, exactly understanding why. And for that why, you need to do experiments.
Mm.
So when you say, I agree with you, Palak, when you say that foundation is through that conversation. You
Mm.
need to talk about it, because while this 1.5 hour of discussion, it will enhance my brain connects to understand what others are doing. And I'll start having my inner conversation. Okay, what Falguni talked about, is it relevant for me in my current context? What Dr. Rishi talks about, is it relevant for me? Or am I doing it? These conversations are also learning periods, I would say, or learning modules. And that same mechanism is important. And that's what I strongly believe, that I keep that as a priority. Let's
Mm.
talk about it.
Mm.
And with manufacturing, the biggest challenge is the average learning hours that I get, promised learning hours, is just 60 minutes. So that's where we are standing today. I don't get 8 hours in
Mm.
front of my people. I hardly get 1 hour, 60 minutes or 90 minutes. That's all.
Correct.
I know that in 90 minutes you can't consume the buffet. You can't, right? It would be indigestion.
No.
So rather than focusing, pumping in everything, let's just talk about the foundation. So
Mm.
example, if you're talking about AI, Okay, where are you using it? How is it benefiting and saving your time and productivity? And then, let's have a conversation talking about what are the tools. And that is how things, I mean, the churning of thoughts,
Mm.
you get the churning of thoughts, and that's how get leaders to then coming up with a clear cut expectation. And
Mm.
Makran, this is where, this is what I want for my team to be done in the next 3 months. And that's enough. So I'm not looking at quantity, I'm rather looking at quality.
Always the one that wins out in the race of, what
Yeah.
helps us achieve most.
And, and I
And
think it is more required today because we are in a
oh,
market of,
definitely.
knowledge
Definitely.
is everywhere.
There is a lot of quantity, absolutely. And in the age of technology, and the kind of information available, quantity is not an issue at all. And you've very interestingly called out that all of us here in this panel and the learners that have joined us have actually already started owning our own learning. I know my goal was to step in and learn from what everybody else is doing, and what can I take back to do better in what I'm trying to achieve. And you've really called that out for all of us. Thank you, Makrant. And so far we've been talking about the mindset, the structure, and about the ownership that we play as L&D in enabling it. And this next layer that I want to touch upon is scale. And we're already talking about it, the personalization. How is it important to you? Like you said, Makaran, it's self-awareness. What do I not know? And what do I need to know to do better? That realization is so important. And that intent and good design, they can only go so far when organizations are large, roles are diverse, needs change extremely quickly, as we're all observing. And that's where technology and data, they come in, and they are coming in. They've become a part of our lives. They're not replacing the way we make judgments, but to help us reduce friction, to not just help us push more learning, but to make the right learning easier, available, help us maybe condense the courses that we used to probably do across hours into minutes, and be able to still have that impact and the learning. But the challenge, of course, is that personalization can just as easily turn into noise. We all know this. Falguni, given your experience working with various HR systems and performance data and even capability frameworks, how are you using learning platforms, or even AI to personalize learning journeys in a way that supports the employee ownership? Because they're still going to stay a little, cookie cutter, but how are you achieving this without overwhelming them or turning learning into another just, alerts and recommendations, and you have to do this?
So I think this is very important question, Palak, and I think there is a question in the chat box related to this question also. So I'll try my best to answer that, and then Dr. Rishi and Makrit can help me to build on that. So see, today's the biggest challenge is not about the content. We have a lot of content, so the lack of content is not the challenge anymore, right? Actually, it's about an employees feel overloaded with too much of content nowadays, right? So the way we use technology is very intentional, right? Personalization doesn't mean offering 200 courses to an individual. It means offering 5 that truly matters to an employees, right? AI help us to do that by understanding employee skills, gap, and career interest. So let me give an example, right? If someone in the frontline role wants to move to a supervisory role, the platform can show them a very specific leadership pathway instead of the long menu options, right? That reduces overwhelm and increase the clarity to an individual. So rather giving employees, 100 of courses, we curated learning pathways which actually aligned with the business priorities. So for another example is, for example, a digital literacy, a curated 20-minute starter pathway instead of 300 available digital courses. Otherwise, employees will always get confused, what to start with and what to avoid with, right? So this helps to remove the noise and decision fatigue, to be very honest. And we are also mindful in the organization about the nudges, right? Instead of bombarding people with 10 different reminders a week, we use one or two gentle prompts that are timely and relevant, right? And we break the learning into very small and digestible pieces so that people can easily fit, people can easily take it, and that can also fit into their daily life. AI must observe the learning patterns and send reminders which are smart in nature. Because if you will ask me honestly, sometimes it is just a spamming in their inboxes, right? Where employees feel, a lot of reminders are coming and then they'll ignore it. So, for example, if someone start a course and pause it at a 60%, they get a gentle nudge after a week.
Mm.
What happens when someone is not at all engaged, right? The system doesn't push more content, right? It should ideally change the approach, right? Example, showing a 2-minute video instead of a 2-hour course. So that's what an expectation of an AI. But what I strongly believe, Palak, is that AI should support, not replace the human element, right? And my managers will still play a huge role in contextualizing the learning. L&D will still curate it, and the platform simply brings the intelligence to the process. So the technology will help personalizing journey, but we use it in a way that feels supportive. As you rightly mentioned, that employees should not feel that they are getting fatigue, or it's in bombarding of a different courses every now and then, right? So rather it should reduce the complexity, not to add to it, right? So we at Crompton, we use AI to simplify learning, not to multiply it, to be very honest. Yeah,
That is absolutely true because anyone today can go to any of the AIs and ask a question and
absolutely
they'll get a long essay that no one's going to read.
correct.
Right? I think the skill is in picking that essay and saying, for this role, for this requirement, give me something that helps them understand. At the end, the goal is
Correct.
to help them understand, right? So reducing that noise using AI, and I think as professionals, it's so essential to understand that it's such a strong support system in a way that we have in AI. We don't need to copy paste it. We don't need to
Correct.
fill it. It cannot replace the intelligence of a learning and development professional who knows that the role is, let's say, project manager, but they don't need all of this.
Correct.
How do we need to make it sensible for them? How do we need to make it, as you said, not too heavy? That's so important. Everyone's so overstimulated today that another bit of thing to do is just another activity. It's just not acceptable. It's just you will reject it, right?
Correct.
So important there. Um, excellent piece on how you're nudging people. That's very interesting because the first thing you do when people are not joining is send them daily nudges.
Correct.
Let's send daily nudges. If people can't find the time or if they're not bought into it, they're not bought into it, right? So intelligent empowerment, I think, is an excellent way to achieve this. Thank you, Falcone.
Thank you.
Uh, so Makrant, across your roles, from Vodafone to TCS to your current work in manufacturing, as you shared, you've, of course, been making learning decisions at scale and using data to balance relevance and impact and the investment made into L&D. So, what role uh, do you think learning is playing in nudging employees towards the right skills at the right time without overwhelming them or turning it into noise? And Falguni touched up upon some of that. How are you seeing L&D do this?
Well, Palak, you know, though this is again, as I said, with AI coming in picture, obviously there's a lot of pressure in terms of, how are you utilizing AI to solve these problems. But at the same time, the way I look at it, and this is what we are doing currently, is even if you talk about AI and the scale in which you can answer questions, I mean, not you as in the AI,
Mm.
but at the same time, uh, I think I feel overwhelmed that as an individual, I can't be available everywhere, right? I mean, especially when you're geographically, it's very challenging. Like you have eight manufacturing units which are not in one place. They're spread across the country. So I think what we are experimenting right now is, have at the same time when you're using AI to respond to certain learning needs, you also develop uh, extended learning arms uh, who become, your touch points in these locations, and they talk the same language in terms of object, in terms of, the learning objective or in terms of the business objective. So this is one thing that I, as a leader, I feel is my role. Multiplying myself in terms of, having people who can talk the same language. They can connect with the people at that particular location, contextualize what the training team is intending to cover, and at the same time support. So, and this comes with a thought that, even today, we all are customers. There was a time, I mean, I was with Vodafone. So, if you face a problem as a service provider, you would call uh, a number, and a person would connect with you to solve your problem. And that was a kind of assurance that you would get that, okay, I'm talking to a person. I'm a telecom guy. I was a telecom guy for 12 years. So, a simple example is if you're facing a problem with your billing, you would connect. Um, Now, if today, if I'm considered to be an expert in training, as a single person, I cannot respond to each and every problem, right?
Mm,
From a learning perspective, can I have learn extended arms?
true.
And my job is to calibrate them. My job is to ensure that they are on the same page so that they are supporting the learning time and again. So my role, utilize the AI, no doubt, but at the same time also build your human capability,
Mm,
who can enable those small discussions at that particular location. I think that is what has worked for us
mm,
at Sharda Motors. However, yes, having said that, if you throw me a question that, right now you're dealing with 8 locations, what if you're dealing with multiple geographies in terms of international locations? Then the cultural element will also add.
yes.
And that would be another challenge to
Yes.
look at. So it's a mix. You have to keep a balance between I mean, your technology platform as well as human intervention. And I think that is experimental. I mean, you'll have to contextualize it. You'll also have to look at, what the need is and then move ahead.
I think it's interesting you're calling it experimental, Makran, because it is such a muscle memory for a learning leader to utilize all the tools available to them. And in this case, you're using the human capital, the human, and what I like about this, and I'm sure Dr. Rishi and Falguni, you tapped into this, is that you're using a cultural shift to minimize your nudges because nudges are so impersonal. It's an email, it's a message, I don't resonate with that. I have 20 of those sitting in my chat and 5,000 emails that I haven't read. So it's just another something, to do. It's a to do activity because it's a nudge. But when it's a conversation, when you've created these learning champions, these learning enablers, as you're explaining to us, it becomes a conversation. So it's a nudge at a much larger scale, which makes me proactively become a part of that culture. So the nudges start becoming a little less required, I would assume. Is I think what you're looking at in your future, Makran, is what will happen. You must have probably be experiencing it already because it's a conversation. We treat learning as another activity. But it's a part of our lives. That's what we've been discussing, Falguni and Dr. Rishi, right? I love that you're able to um, use the skills or the support of the people around you to be able to create that culture, create that conversation. It's not easy to do. We all know that. No one has the time to, have that conversation. That's our job. So it is fantastic that you're driving that. And we'll talk a little bit more about culture there, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in that.
Can
Um,
I add something,
please, yes.
Palak? Uh, I mean, very interesting thoughts shared by Makan, wherein it is always, it's always a equation between, the scale and the effectiveness. Okay, so you have to always, if whether technology or AI is always effective, I will say no. Technology is not about algorithms. Technology is about relevance.
Mm,
So that is what I believe. So we have got some use cases I'll share with you. For example, we are testing, I'll not say using, we are testing AI in interview. There are multiple tools available
yes.
in the market. And particularly where, the companies like TCS or Infosys, where the hiring is a very large number, there the AI tools are being used to, sift the CVs. So today, these schools are being taught how to make sure your CV passes through that AI tool also. So that is
Yeah.
also there. So I mean, that was one that we are also using this interview tool. But I would say we are not giving power to it. The final power lies in the hand of human. So it is helping us to it, and we are seeing the correlation in it. There are tools which are giving nudges to the learners that your this course is pending, but we don't give much importance to it. I am using AI primarily to build skills. You will be surprised that technology can build skills also. Yes, I am using a tool which wherein we have trained the AI that how will you interact with an auditor,
Hmm.
how will you interact with a customer. So we are training that AI the best case scenario, the worst case scenario, the average scenario with multiple ways. And a newcomer who comes to the company, he is allocated a AI coach or a trainer first. Then they play with it. First, he teaches that the scientific, because we are very scientific evidence based organization. Pharmaceutical, you know it very well. The mode of action, the ingredients, the side effects, everything has to be told. So these are like, one and zero. So these can be taught by the AI. But when it comes to, you know, putting it across in a scientific manner, that is the challenge. So we are also playing with the idea that, how AI trainer can teach the skills, how they can present it. So there are AI tools, AI coach, we call it AI trainer, which is helping the people to develop their communication skills. So this will reduce, I am not saying this will replace our sales trainers, but this will be add on acting as assistants to the sales trainers. So this is something which is very, very encouraging, which I have been experimenting here. I would love to share some more details when we meet in person.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds like very interesting. And I'd love to hear, Dr. Rishi, in this technology, in this AI that you've designed, and it's doing exactly what we wanted to do, help people learn. But since it's tech driven, it's more push driven, ideally by design. How would you still enable it to, or how would you still design it to support ownership and learning by employees,
Very,
or can
very
we
good.
do that?
Very relevant point. In fact, we always, I mean, I can give you theoretical answer. I give you practical answer also. So the practical answer I will give you is that, there is a competency framework which we have got.
Hmm.
So there is a 5-level competency framework: novice, basic, intermediate, uh, proficient, and expert. So we share with the target audience. This is Our expectation is this is the proficiency level that you want. We want 1 and 2 only. So you go and play with the AI till the time AI doesn't give you proficient level. You keep on playing.
Interesting. Very
So
interesting.
that is kind of, we are putting a guardrail over there so that it at they come at that particular proficiency level when they come to the classroom,
Hmm.
and then we treat them with the higher aspects accordingly. So we are the basic things and the follow-up things are being done by AI. The classroom aspects are being done by sales trainer. So that is something. I hope I am able to make some sense out of it.
Oh, I absolutely love that because that is such a great use of technology. I would love to hear someday more about how we're making AI. You've made it playful almost, Dr. Rishi,
Absolutely.
isn't it?
Absolutely.
Uh, that
It's
is
a fun. It's a
fantastic.
fun.
It has to be. It otherwise it's just, it's learning, which not everybody enjoys. Making it play is more sticky, isn't it? And that's just thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure we'll all benefit from knowing more.
Like when you tell Siri, tell me a joke. It tells you a joke. Maybe it is silly, but tells you a joke. Similarly, the AI also we play with it accordingly, and it gives you the feedbacks in a very fun-loving manner, kind of thing.
Hmm. That is a great use of technology in keeping it light and not heavy, right? And there is an uncomfortable truth in everything we've discussed so far. We design these beautiful learning journeys. You shared such thought out approaches, right? To personalize the learning, to use data and to use technology, and given people the tools to be able to learn. And the learning will still stall. We know this. And if the culture doesn't back it up, such a big enabler, culture, right? Because employees are not going, and we've talked about this, employees, we don't take cues from learning strategies. Just because there is learning, no one's going to go and attempt it. We take cues from our leaders. And that's what we started with. Falguni, in the beginning, you said we have to walk the talk, right? Because they notice what gets rewarded, they notice what gets questioned, and more importantly, they noticed what we deprioritize really quietly when things get busy. So, what's really important there? And that's where I think the accountability for growth actually lives, not in the frameworks only, but in that day to day, that behavior that we exhibit or we observe. So, Dr. Rishi, given your work in coaching leaders and building accountability, this is right in your wheelhouse. How can leaders at different levels reinforce that accountability for continuous learning in your everyday work? It not one day out of a week, right? So learning becomes that part of how work gets done, not something that's competing for attention with it.
Well, this is a one question for all L&D leaders, I think so. You are starting with me, I suppose. Let me share with you what I do. I mean, what ideally be done or what cannot be done is something different. What I do. In case there's some crucial learning to be done, typically, for example, I give again an example of situation leadership. That has to be rolled out in the organization. So one can always start from bottom, but I do is I ensure the stakeholders are certified first.
Hmm.
You get a buying in of a stakeholders. So I make sure that we have a separate batch of all the stakeholders, the presidents, the senior vice presidents. So once they are in the pocket, down the line is very easy for me. So I make them a co-facilitator, and we have an external facilitator also. And of course, I am the trainer. Of course, my trainers are also certified. So we ensure that they see the pudding benefit of that pudding accordingly. And that helps me in rolling it out. So you first thing is you hit the elephant in the room first. Okay. So that taken care, the selling of the training will not be difficult. So
Agreed.
as a trainer, as a L&D person, you should be the best salesperson in the company.
True. That is true.
Okay, you should know how to market your product. And it is not that it is your selfish motive, it is for the organization only you're doing. So that motive, if your top person, say president or CEO, knows about it, you will get 100% support.
Hmm.
For example, I can share with you, I shared my vision that we are transforming the organization now. So the leaders immediately connected with my vision and my thought process. And we are now created a cohorts. We're taking top 30 leaders to IIM for a customized program. And for the next level, I'm going to conduct program in functional leadership at second level IIMs accordingly. So why this buying in has come? There is no question of ROI coming over here. There is no question of cost coming over here. It is because I could sell the value which is going to come. So that is something. And automatically, when you said no, that the one is that I'm creating a magnetism over there, and at the same time, self-directed learning also. It creates a buzz in the company.
Correct.
Out of 5,000 people, if 30 are going, बाकी पूछे मेरा नंबर कब आएगा? So that is the kind of buzz you create, and your job is to create energy levels. By the way,
Absolutely.
मेरा दूसरा नाम energy भी है company के अंदर.
I'm going to start addressing you as that, Dr. Rishi, and I can see where it comes from. Falguni and Makran, would you like to add anything to this?
Falguni, would you want to go first?
Yeah, so I think Palak, when you asked about the cultural barriers, right? So I think there are very few real cultural barriers I see very commonly in the organization. The first one could be the mindset around the time, right? Many employees genuinely feel that they don't have a time to learn, right? Because there are a lot of a laundry list which they have to deliver as an individual in the organization, right? And because they see learning as in something extra, not part of the role, right? And something outside their regular work, which, they have to take a time off and sit in the classroom session and then upskill themselves, right? And one of our biggest cultural shift has helped us to, see that learning has become now a part of the job, not an add-on. That's a job of an L&D professional in partnership with the line managers and the HR business partners in the each role. The second barrier, which I feel personally, is a fear, right? People hesitate to admit that they don't know something, or they worry about being judged if they try to learn a new skill, to be very honest, right?
True.
And the learning requires the vulnerability, let's accept that. And that means that we need a culture where asking questions, experimenting, and even feeling is safe. I think this is where, the employees will start owning their own learning journey the moment they feel that psychological safety is being maintained by an individual organization. The third barrier, as per me, and which is very, very common, it's the old habit of waiting for someone to send them for the training, right? Yeah, unless and until my manager push me that please go for this training, please upskill, please do this, please do that, I think people will not take it seriously. Historically, learning was always given to employees, right? Let's accept the fact. And now we are asking them to pick up that responsibility on their shoulder, and that requires a mindset change, which will take time. So I think finally, when employees don't see a learning modules translate into their own individual growth, they generally deprioritize it. And employees hesitate when they can't see how learning connects with their career growth and the performance. If there is
Definitely.
no clarity, let's admit that. If there is no clarity in the skills leads to which opportunities, there is zero motivation, right? And so so transparency is important. For example, in a learning, in all the conversation, I generally encourage my managers that please be very transparent to employees that what are the skills which are required for you as an individual to go to a next level, right? So that individual actually spend time and sharpen that skill. So I think once we address all these cultural blockers, people will naturally start owning their development, and it becomes the part of the way we grow and they grow in the organization.
Absolutely. And I think one cultural aspect that I think you and Dr. Rishi have touched upon, and I'll come to you, Makrand, is how leaders, their involvement and their awareness of what their team is learning helps support that culture so much. It instantly brought me back to my early years, at least a decade back or more, is when I was training a concept very new back then. And one of the learners said, you know what, this is not going to help. I can't apply this in my real life. And I was taken aback because back then you sat in a training room and you just learned what your trainer taught you, right? So when they said that, I was like, why do you say that? They said, because my manager doesn't know this. And the topic I was teaching them was assertiveness. Very tricky, very risky, right? And they said, I cannot do all of these things. They'll think I'm being insubordinate. And when you go back and you tell that group of managers, because we're supposed to know a lot of things, when you say, hey, you need to learn assertiveness, they're like, no, no, we understand. That's where, the security of you may not know this, you may know the word, you may not know it all. That culture creation of it's okay to not know, or it's okay to refresh your knowledge, also creates that ownership, and the want of saying, I may want to know a little bit more about this. Thank you so much on touching upon that, Falguni. Makrand, your thoughts?
Indeed, yeah. I think I'll pick up from what Falguni and Dr. Rishi talked about, addressing the elephant in the room, and most important, the fear. Um, I think these two are critical aspects that as a learning leader you should understand. We keep on talking about multiple things, but then we don't address the core. And it is also important for us when you are addressing the fear, which is connected with the culture, because what you are asking me to do, but my manager is not doing it.
Yeah.
You're asking me to do it, but my manager is not doing it. And that's where, and these are constant questions which are bombarded, when you I mean, as a training leader, you also wear the hat of a facilitator when you enter the room, right? And I think again, I'll go back to the basics, which is, and this I give this credit to my time with where they taught me to, just throw your attitude outside of the room, throw your
Mhm.
experience. You don't come with that experience.
Correct.
Just be an impactful conversationist, or just be an impactful person who can listen
Yeah.
to what they want. And I guess when you talk about culture, it is again, I don't know what analogy should I put it across, because one person, you can't impact the entire organizational culture in, maybe you can't define a time frame, right? It is your daily actions which will influence people that what you're talking as a leader is making sense. So maybe not a democratic way of, just making sure that you're listening to what people are asking you constantly. Will this work? Why should I do this?
Mm.
And just hearing it out. Because what I've seen is many people, they start or they jump to give you an answer.
Mm.
And I guess that's where the problem starts. As experienced guys, if you're throwing me a question, I need to respond. What
Mm.
Falguni talks about,
Mm.
you need to know you're under the pressure that you should know. I think just shed it off. Don't do that. Don't get into the mindset of, you know it all. Get into the mindset of, you're experiencing it, because things are changing around. I mean, what we learned 5 years back may not be relevant today.
True.
Or maybe you'll have to change your thought, you'll have to tweak it, and then again implement it. So it is fine if we are flexible enough to change, and also change our thoughts. And that intent should come out as a leader, as a learning leader. I'm not having a conversation that I know everything and now I'm talking to you.
Mm.
You are well experienced, you have that exposure, you have done it, you have faced this problem. So I mean, I connect this with even my Vodafone days. I still remember being a part of the retail team. I was talking to Vodafone dealership leaders, in Goa. And we were talking about soft skills, and then this person comes and stands and says that, what would you do if your customer is entering the store with a gun? मैं ये bill नहीं भरूंगा.
Mm.
What kind of soft skills would you show? I mean, and then you're speechless, right? So don't try and throw the framework, the structure. I think it is important that you talk about a culture which is flexible enough,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I
which
think
is
this,
will stay relevant tomorrow at least. Tomorrow we'll have to change.
absolutely. And thanks for sharing that, Makrand. It's a larger conversation about how a workplace is safe enough for anyone to be able to open up and say that I don't know this, or I have a scenario that I don't know how to handle, like the one you shared, right? Because honestly, we all know where we struggle. We all kind of have an idea of what we need to learn, but can we say it? Right? Can we say it
Yeah.
at the cost of being judged? And I think that is such a big conversation around how safe is the environment for you to be able to say, I don't know this. Right. And I think one thing that I always do when I used to train, and even now when I have conversations, is to let people realize that they do have an expertise, just not this one, maybe. Right. So you are an expert at something, you're doing something really well. You are adding this to your armor. You probably just don't know this, so that's okay. And in organizations it also helps because they have a relationship with you, you're the person who's responsible for the capability. Always has helped when I've said, well, you're in this room with me now, so till I have not walked you through it, I'm not going to expect you to exhibit that skill. Creates a little bit of a safety there. Yeah, I can say I don't know this, and that's fine, because we're always geared to say, yes, I know, I'm going to find the answer. So, Makran, tell me, you touched upon this a little bit. Do you think feedback, or daily performance conversations, or not daily, regular performance conversations, will they be a contributor or a supporter to employee-driven learning journeys, or to give them more empowerment towards how they can drive their learning and how it connects to real work?
I'm a strong supporter of, constant feedback, Palak. I strongly believe that, whenever because it's definitely not given. You have to ask for it. People will not give you genuine feedback unless and until you genuinely ask for it. Right. And I strongly believe, thank you very much. And I would like to, one thought that I would like to share with people, because throughout my experience, I've realized that, if you don't ask, you will not get it. And it starts with feedback, right?
True.
Um, and as I said, when you enter, when you're having that conversation with whatever level of people you're interacting with, whether it is a MD or whether it is a CEO, whether it is a senior manager, you constantly you start asking, what do you think needs to change in me? When I say me, I'm talking about my expert, my area of expertise. What needs to change in training? You know, be that be that humble person in terms of saying that, okay, we may have done 10 things, but I think you would add two more valuable points which will add that particular value.
Agree.
So
Yeah.
constant conversation needs to be there. But for having that conversation, you need to be in that mindset. That
Yes.
okay, like while because I'll tell you, this realization comes when you're constantly thrown. I mean, just a small experience that talked about. I mean, I would like to share about when I was with Dale Carnegie. My past experience was with the exposure of banking and telecom. But with Dale Carnegie, it suddenly, the exposure was with 10 different industries, right?
Mm.
From energy to petroleum to, whatnot. And what I realized was that you can't understand. I mean, today you're talking about high impact presentation with me, let's say a pharma company, and day after tomorrow you're using the same content to then explain Jindal Steel, how high impact presentation is necessary. So that contextualization
Mm.
taught me to, make you realize that you need to be in that research acumen phase. You constantly ask yourself, what do your people want? What they
Agree.
want today will change tomorrow. And hence you need to be in that framework of, constant feedback.
Agreed. Definitely. And that's how
That's
you
what
follow.
my submission is.
Can I come in over here, Makran?
Yes, please.
Yes, yes, please.
In fact, feedback is I am totally in agreement with this aspect with the constant feedback. However, my methodology is a little different. I normally recommend that the feedback should be given, or rather it should be asked in a coaching format. you know for example, I'm sharing one exercise which everybody, all 14 of you, can try it, including me. That when I do a coaching, any coachee I have, I tell them to have a diary of theirs, learning diary, and go to 5 people every month and ask them 2 questions. That's it. What feedback do you have for me for a particular skill, say on my presentation skills?
Mm.
What can I do differently? That's it. So here, as Makran says, that you are getting into a humility mode. लेकिन ये करना बहुत डिफिकल्ट है. मेरे लिए बोलना बहुत आसान है, लेकिन किसी के पास जाके भिक्षा मांगना is difficult. Okay, so and that will only come if you have given the other person psychological safety.
Safety. Absolutely.
Many
Absolutely.
times, 90% of time, they will laugh at you. अरे यार क्या हो गया तुमको? कौन which side of the bed you have opened today? And I tell you, the leaders, the CFOs, the CEOs, CXOs, when I tell them to do this, 50% they don't do it.
You can't. It's
They don't
difficult.
do the task
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because it is very difficult to bend.
It is.
झुकना मुझे मंजूर है, झुकेगा नहीं साला, बोलते ना. So that is exactly what it is. So this is one exercise which I tell them, and it is if till the time my mind is open, I will not accept the feedback. And till the time I give psychological safety to my giver, I will not get the right feedback.
Absolutely.
Thought
Absolutely.
I'll share with this small 2 bits of mine.
Such a powerful thought, Dr. Rishi, because it is difficult for it. You are constantly judged. whatever level of skill you're at in an organization, you're constantly judged. Whether you're supposed to know that skill or not is secondary. The fact that you asked a question and were vulnerable enough to say, I don't know this, is, oh my God, this person doesn't know this, is what starts to happen. And I've seen a lot of people just sit quietly rather than getting that clarity, because you can also be branded as asks too many questions,
Correct.
needs too much clarity, is unsure of this skill, and the person is just trying to be better. So it's such a complex network of things that happen before someone can say, yes, I'm going to get up and say, I need to learn this, and no one will point a finger at me and say, oh, you don't know, right? So the fantastic thoughts that everyone's shared. I'm so glad. I'm taking back some for sure. And I'll end this where we began. That skill that we were, and I'm sure all of us are quietly hoping we won't need. That real question is not whether we will need it. It's whether we'll notice the signals early enough to act on it, and whether the environment will make that action possible. And I think as learning leaders, we have such a big responsibility to help that culture first. It's like, make the foundation stronger so you can build on it. So if we can help create that culture, is when we can tell people, own your learning. You are now empowered. Right. So thank you so much, everyone, for that thought-provoking perspective that you all shared, and the engagement. If there are any questions, we'll open for now, but I see a lot of questions have already been answered. So we'll open for questions. And I will also hand it over to Mansi to take it further if we have none.
Palak, I think, thank you very much. I would be logging out because there is some urgent meeting is coming out. It has been great being with you, Palak, Falguni, and Makran.
Same here, sir.
Great learning sessions from your side, nugget for me also. Thank you very much. I will log out accordingly. I've got a meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Rishi.
Over to you, Mansi.
Concluding today's panel discussion, and I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all our attendees for joining today's panel discussion and actively engaging their inside conversation. Our participants are truly enriching the dialogues. Our special note of gratitude to our esteemed panelists for sharing their valuable, respective, and real world experience. Dr. Rishi, Mr. Makaran, Ms. Falguni, and obviously Ms. Palak. Thank you for your time, thought, leadership, and meaningful contribution that made this discussion impactful and enriching for everyone present here. We are truly appreciate your support and looking forward to contributing this engaging conversation in the future. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mansi.
everyone.
Thanks, Palak. Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks,
Thank you,
Makran,
Palak.
for the
Thank you,
insightful.
Falguni.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
same
Take
here.
care.